feel free to get situated. Hi, Deanna. Real quick, so thank you for taking time out of a beautiful day on a busy weekend to spend a few hours with us as we go through this district process. A little context, so the City Council, as you may know, is moving from electing their City Council members at large to electing them by district. This is our third meeting as part of this process of drawing the districts, and you guys are in luck that you're coming to the first meeting where we're actually going to begin drawing the districts. So your input today could have very direct implications on how this is going to turn out. So thank you for being here. In a moment, I'm going to introduce Dr. Karen McDonald. Her and her team, Jamie and Alexis, are going to be guiding us through this process. They've been working with us for the last month or so, and just want to also let you know if you do need any sort of translation services, they're available with Jesus Villasenor. He'll be situated in the back if you do need translation services, and if you need anything from myself or Thomas or Tony, we're here to help. The green form that I handed to you, if you wish to speak, just fill one of those out and hand it in to myself at some point in time. We're going to have Dr. McDonald give a presentation, then we'll take a break so you have time to fill that out. So without further ado, I'll introduce Dr. Karen McDonald.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I did tell some people they could come a little later, so I hope they will be coming a little later. I just warned everybody if they didn't want to listen to this presentation one more time, then, it will be okay to come 15 minutes late. So maybe we'll get some company and they'll all be coming in here by the busload. Yeah. So thank you very much, though, for coming, and I think some of you can probably do this presentation by now, just as well as I can. This is just an overview of the districting process, how to participate, and the criteria that we're going to be using. So let's go to the next slide. Thank you, Jamie. So what is districting? Really quickly, in a district-based electoral system, representatives are elected from districts. Currently, you have an at-large system. So basically, currently, you get one ballot. All of the candidates, no matter where they live in the city, are on that one ballot. And that is what you vote on. And once you're moving to districts, the candidates have to live in the district, and that is, just the candidates that are running in that district are going to be on your ballot, aside from, of course, people that are still running at large. For example, the mayor. The mayor will still be running at large. Districting is the process of drawing the boundaries that divide the city's population into the 4 districts. So basically, you may have heard the term redistricting. That is what we do every 10 years once you have districts already. So if these districts that we're going to construct are not going to be completely perfect, you will have a chance to make them perfect in very soon after the next census is collected and then released. So in the year ending with 1, there will be another shot at all of these districts, and you can redraw them, because at that point you will have new population figures. And districting, redistricting, it's really based on population. That is why we do it. We make sure that we have equal numbers of people in all of the districts. The city has implemented a transparent public process to draw these districts. That is, of course, why we're all here. No smoky back rooms here. We're all doing this together. Everybody can hear everybody's testimony, everybody's opinions. You can see the work that we're doing. The only thing that we're doing when we're not here is we take your input. For example, if you tell us that your community of interest is bordered by 4 streets, and then Jamie, she creates a polygon, basically a geographic little shape file for that particular area that you've talked about, so that we can pull them up on the map. And the first time we actually looked at some of those polygons was at the City Council meeting. I don't know if any of you have had the chance to either attend or watch it on the television last Wednesday. We walked the City Council members through what kind of testimony and what kind of input we had received already. Not all of it, but a good amount, and kind of showed them what this actually looks like. So essentially what we're doing is we're building a separate data set from all these data sets that we're using already. So this particular data set is just about Oceanside, just about your community, and we're building that with every input that we're getting. This data set grows. So we have a really good descriptive idea of what's going on here, and where people are, and their electoral needs, because people are telling us about it. So if passed by the City Council, these districts are going to go into effect with the November 2018 election. So it's important to remember that this is not a done deal yet. We're going through the process. We're going to create these districts, but the City Council still has to vote on them. So whatever we come up with here, City Council will actually see these districts after we're done with them, and there's a public comment period, and then there will be a City Council hearing, and that's going to be on June 21st, and I'll walk you through the entire timeline in a second, and that is pretty much their first opportunity to also comment and then maybe make some changes, but that's also going to be in public. And I just keep on emphasizing that this is in public because redistricting in particular has just such a bad reputation. In particular, if if you're listening to national news where, people are presented with maps that they have never seen, or they change in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden people are like drawn out of their districts, even though they were in the district 5 minutes before and they didn't know, and whatnot else. So there's a lot of, it gets really exciting in redistricting. There's a lot of things you can do wrong. So the reason for why we're in public is because we feel like that, combats a lot of that. So sunlight, sunshine is a really good disinfectant, as people usually say. So we're sticking to that. Next, please. So how does this process work? We have already had some of the community meetings. As Zach said, this is our third community meeting, and we've also had a couple of City Council hearings. The first hearing was the one where they decided to go to districts. The second one was just last Wednesday, where we, showed them a little bit what's going on and told them that, we're having these meetings and what's been happening. And then there's going to be, after this particular meeting, there's going to be a meeting next Tuesday, and then the Tuesday after that, so on the 30th, is going to be our last public meeting. And these meetings today, next Tuesday, and then the Tuesday after that are going to pretty much have the same format. So again, I am starting with this little PowerPoint at every meeting, just because we get some new people every time, and I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page about what's happening here. And then, we'll again look at maps for a few minutes. You give us some more input, and then Jamie's going to take over and we'll do some live line drawing, and that's actually really a lot of fun, and I think you'll enjoy it, and I'm really happy that you're all here. So of course, we're collecting data through community input, not just at the hearings, but also through mailed and emailed submissions. I think we've gotten a couple of phone calls also. So however you want to get the information to us, there is different avenues to do that. And of course, being here is always great, because that way, if we don't really understand what you're saying, we can ask you and you can make sure that we really got it. But again, if you can't make it to a meeting, we're happy to hear from you in other ways also. The draft districting plan, so that's the plan that we're going to finalize pretty much on May 30. Will be up on the website and will be released and probably out in the media also at the very latest on June 14. There is a tiny little bit of, there's some time in between, just because we're going to have to just make some maps, make sure that we have everything assigned, run some reports, get it onto the website, get it integrated into map on the website, send it out, print some maps and all of that. So there's just a little, just general work that's involved. But I am pretty certain that it's going to be out before June 14. So that's really the latest date, so probably in the week before. And then again, as I said, on June 21st, we will present the draft that we have to the City Council, and at that point they can make some changes if they want to. That's another opportunity for everybody to come to the City Council and say, well, we don't like this at all, or we do like it, or we almost like it, so make a few changes, and we can make some changes there. So that's also a good meeting to come to. And then on July 25th, so there is it's a month in between, there is a reading of an ordinance, and then on August 1st they will be voting on the ordinance. And that ordinance is, of course, okay, here are the City Council districts, and we either like them or we don't like them, so we're either voting for them or we're not. And City Attorney is not here yet, so if anybody has any questions about what happens if they vote no, then please wait until he gets here, because I don't know. All right, next please. So when and where are the meetings? We had the first two at Valderrama and El Corazon, and today we're at Bishop. Next Tuesday we'll be at Lake Elementary, and then on the 30th we'll be in the library community room, so that's downtown, of course. And the City Council hearings, they're all in City Hall. Next please. Let's go through the mapping criteria really quickly. Mapping criteria, we have 5 of them, and they're not unique to Oceanside. You see them in some form in every districting or redistricting. Sometimes there's a few more, sometimes, they sound a little different, but basically that's what it boils down to. These are pretty standard. First is equal population. As I said, redistricting is about equalizing districts that you already have in terms of population, and really, that's not negotiable. You really have to have equal population in your districts, because otherwise, why are you doing it, right? This is about one person, one vote. It's about having the same number of people in every district. I'll go through this in a little more detail in a second. The second one is also not negotiable. That is compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act. And sometimes I think about these criteria as like Tier 1 and Tier 2 criteria. The first 2, they're just really not negotiable. And the other 3, you can kind of, if you have to trade them off a little bit against each other, you can do that. You still have to meet them, but they're just not as hardcore. So the other ones are contiguity, compactness, respect for communities of interest, and finally, we are to disregard incumbents, candidates, and political parties. So criteria 1 and 2, equal population and the Federal Voting Rights Act, we get those from federal law and from the Constitution. In the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause was interpreted to require reasonably equal district population. So when you hear one person, one vote, that is what that is. Basically, that's how it's kind of that context in which people talk about this. And what it does is it prohibits intentional discrimination because it's a violation of equal protection. The jurisdiction would be treating residents differently because of race, and because of that, they would not be according them equal protection under the law. So that's one way to think about it. And then there's also the 15th Amendment, which bans racial discrimination in voting. Next, please. Let's talk about ideal population really quickly. So when we're talking about ideal population and like reasonable equality, what do we want? What we want is we want to first figure out how many districts are we going to draw, which is 4. Then we look at our population from the census, and we're using the population from the 2010 census. And that may sound a little weird to people, and it is a little weird, I have to admit, but unfortunately we're in the year ending with 7, and the next census is released in the year ending with 1 in 2021, right? So in 2020, on April 1, that's census date. That's when everybody gets the forms that you have to fill out, and that is when we're collecting the new population figures, and that is the only count of the population that we have in the United States. Everything else that you see, for example, Department of Finance statistics, or SOCAG statistics, or various think tanks, those are all estimates, and they're usually estimates on what we call a larger unit of analysis. So they're not on a small area. These are basically estimates on much larger areas, like maybe on a city level or so. So when we're drawing districts, of course, we need that small level to build our districts. And the courts have said you have to use that particular data set. Now we know it's not completely accurate anymore because you've had growth in some areas, and so it's not going to be perfect, but it is the best that we have, and that's what we have to use. So that's what we're doing it. So in 2010, the census counted the Oceanside population as 167,340 people. We have 4 districts that we're going to be drawing. So you divide it by 4, and then you have what we call the ideal population. So that is where we want to end up, roughly at 41,835. And you do that for any districts that you're ever going to get involved with. When you want to know your ideal population, you don't have to wait for some consultant to come and tell you. You just take the total population, you divide it by the number of districts, and there you are. Okay? And then the question is, how equal is equal? When we talk about equal population, do we have to be really, really uptight about this? And on the local level, you don't. You have a little bit of wiggle room. And the Department of Justice, in some of its assessments, has usually said plus minus 5%. The courts seem to agree with that in general. The courts sometimes change their mind. Right now, they're good at plus minus 5%, so that's what we're going to use. So if you're looking at congressional districts, you don't get to do that. You have to be within like 1 or 2 or 3 people. Otherwise, you're in trouble. I mean, the courts are really, really strict. It's called strict scrutiny for congressional districts. But for everything else, it's okay if you have to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. And the good thing about having wiggle room is that sometimes you have, say, a neighborhood that you want to keep together, and you just need maybe 100 more people. If you can just stick 100 more people into that district, then you can keep that neighborhood together, or a business district together, or something like that. So if you have to be really strict, then you're breaking that, you know. If you have some wiggle room, it gives you that leeway that you sometimes really want to have to, you know, just keep people together and maybe draw better districts. So our plus minus 5% figure is coming out to 2,092 people from the mean. So basically we can go 41,835 plus minus 2,092 people. The Federal Voting Rights Act, again, that's the part that's non-negotiable. It prohibits the denial or abridgment of voting rights on the basis of race or language minority status. And the Federal Voting Rights Act defines language minority status as being of Asian, Native American, Alaskan Native, or Spanish heritage. It does not apply to any other language groups. Norwegians are not covered. So basically, that is what we're looking for. We're looking for race, race usually black and white, and then these particular language minority groups, they are the protected groups under the Federal Voting Rights Act. What it does is it prohibits practices that have the purpose or effect of discriminating on the basis of race or language minority status, and it applies nationwide to all jurisdictions that conduct elections. So we're not talking about the California Voting Rights Act here anymore. This is the Federal Voting Rights Act, and it is a little different. It's actually a lot different from the California Voting Rights Act because there's a whole lot more in it. But basically, any jurisdiction, nobody needs to be singled out here. It doesn't matter if it's state of California, state of Alabama, the state of New York, or any, water district, school district, whoever, holds elections, everybody's basically covered by this. Next, please. Federal Voting Rights Act and districting. When we talk about this, we think about vote dilution. And what does that mean? Well, electoral systems can limit the ability to elect a candidate of choice by a protected class of voters. Again, our protected groups are the ones that I just outlined, in various ways. For example, in an at-large election system, it can be impossible for even a large minority group to elect a candidate of choice when the majority votes against them. So just think about this. If you have an at-large system, so you have one jurisdiction, let's say you have 35% of a protected minority group, and that protected minority group just really votes very differently from the rest of the population, and the rest of the population votes different from the minority group. Well, when you get like one ballot and all of the candidates are on there, if you're at just 35% and you just, you're participating, you're never going to be able to elect anybody, or very rarely. So that's essentially what vote dilution describes. In single-member districts, which is what we're drawing here, single member, right? So one district, one member, one representative per district. They could also be drawn in ways that minimize voters' ability to elect a candidate of choice. And we'll talk about this in the next slide, but systems that limit that ability to elect in this way are said to dilute minority voting strength. So that last item that I was just talking about, so if you're drawing districts, there's two terms that we talk about when we're talking about the Voting Rights Act, and that is packing and cracking. So cracking is when you have a large minority group and you slice and dice that minority group into different districts, because then if they're a tiny little minority group in each district, well then, with all this districting you just did, you still did not give them an opportunity to elect somebody, because they're again going to be a minority in the district. So that is cracking. Packing is when you have, let's say you have a larger minority group, and they could maybe be a majority in 2 districts. Say you're drawing 10 districts, and that group could be a majority in 2 districts. But what you do is you stick them all into 1 district so that they get 1 representative rather than perhaps, or they get to vote for 1 person of choice and not for 2. And that is called packing. So these 2 terms, they've been used in other contexts recently, but this is really where they come from, and usually they're specific to the Voting Rights Act. I mean, I've heard people talking about packing and cracking Democrats and Republicans and whatnot else, but okay, that's nice, but this is usually what it refers to if you hear those terms. Next, please. So in race and redistricting, so we just talked a lot about race and, language minority status. So the courts just want to make sure we don't have it too easy. So there have been a number of cases coming down. They started with Shaw versus Reno in the 90s. They basically said that race cannot be a predominant criterion in line drawing. So you're going, well, okay, you just told me a whole lot about what I need to do with these race variables, so now you're telling me what I can't do with the race variable, so where am I, right? So what the courts basically are saying is that race should not subjugate traditional districting principles. And those are compactness, contiguity, community of interest, among others. But those are the ones that we have also in our marching orders of, criteria that we have to use to draw these districts. What does this all mean? This means you have to be balanced. You can't just say, okay, well, I'm just going to draw myself all these districts just with 1 variable. I'm just going to look at, all Latinos. I'm just going to look at all blacks. Yeah, no, that doesn't work that way. What works is you have to balance things out. So you look at all of these other criteria also, and that, of course, is why this is a really interesting but also very challenging process. And you'll see this once we start drawing lines, because, you meet 1 criterion and you're going, okay, now I just violated another one. So, how does this all work? And I'm really happy you guys are here, because you're going to see how it works, and we need your help to make it happen. So oftentimes district appearance has been important. That's, of course, that famous gerrymander, right? When people are like, oh, well, if it looks funny, I know that something funny was happening, and maybe, this is a gerrymander. People usually, when they're talking about gerrymanders, they actually talk about something political. The courts, when they're talking about gerrymanders, they're talking about race. They're talking about districts that were drawn to basically pick up racial groups in various part of the jurisdiction. So there's a little bit, loss in translation there sometimes on how people talk about this. So 3rd criteria on compactness. This addresses the geography of the district, just like the next criterion, and there's a lot of different ways to measure this. This is, something where people that like math and statistics, they can probably talk about, this criterion until the cows come home. We have some compactness measures that are part of the software that we're using. So there's about 7 of them, I think, that the courts have regularly used, but generally speaking, judges, attorneys we don't have an attorney here, right? Yeah, they're not necessarily statisticians. So when a court gets a whole bunch of, algorithms that are really long about how things have been measured, they're like, well, let's just back away from them. What does it look like, people? What does it look like? It's really, compactness is really about, what does a district look like? And the eyeball test is actually what some of the justices have used in some of the really important cases. They just wanted to see, is it a good-looking district? Appearances matter. And so next, please. Thank you. Contiguity. Contiguous district is one in which all parts of the districts are connected to each other, so it's pretty straightforward. You just have to be able to get from one end of the district to the other end of the district without without crossing another district line. So you have to be able to stay in the district. I think in your city, it's not going to be that difficult. It becomes really exciting when you're drawing lines, say, in Hawaii, because remember, you still have to have equal population, and then maybe you have an island that doesn't have enough population, and then maybe you got to go to another island to grab some population for your district, and you know, is it really contiguous? Can the water make it contiguous? Or up in Northern California, you know, we used to have a Senate district that went across the Golden Gate Bridge into Marin County from San Francisco, so it had like some of San Francisco in it and some of Marin. There's some really interesting districts, and actually this can be very funny, because I've read some cases also where they're talking about contiguity depending on how high the water line is. You know, if the water line is like at a particular point, then you can use that as a contiguity, you know, as evidence of contiguity, but if the water is higher, then it's not anymore, you know, or maybe if you can get to it with the boat, with a paddle boat, then it could be contiguous, but if you need a motorboat, then not, you know. So it's pretty interesting, actually. It doesn't matter where you're looking in this area, there's always something funny. Finally, communities of interest, and thank you again for to everybody who has turned in, filled out a form, let us know about your communities, has talked about your communities, how they could be together. What are communities of interest? Well, our guidelines say that council districts shall respect communities of interest as much as practicable. Communities of interest generally refers to a contiguous population which shares common social and economic interests, but you know, that's general. Again, as I said earlier, we don't have any data sets available, say from the census or so forth, about what the communities of interest in Oceanside or any place else really are. What you could do, you could get some census data that will tell you, you know, what the home ownership rates are, or, you know, what the poverty status is of people or whatnot. But then the assumption is that all people that own a home and all people that are poor are a community of interest, and those are their electoral needs. And, you know, the courts have been have questioned that a little bit. So what we're doing now is we are asking you for your help, and have asked and have received a lot of help in defining communities of interest in Oceanside, because really you are the ones that are going to define your communities of interest. Communities of interest, COI, defined by those familiar with the community, so the law, again, does not limit the kinds of interests that may bind a community, and it's up to those who live or work with communities to identify and establish the interests that unite it. In some jurisdictions, we've had a lot of participation from groups that were working with certain populations that came in and said, hey, you know, there's community of interest over here and over there, and, you know, that's also, of course, information that we take into consideration. Even though maybe the people that were talking about it did not necessarily live there, but they were working with those communities and they knew them very well. The interests don't need to be limited to your current situation. They could also include common goals. Next, please. For example, under economic interests, because that was one of the categories that is listed in our guidelines, the current situation would be common employment or economic opportunities. For example, sometimes you hear about everybody working in the same area in, say, some sort of a plant, or some sort of, say, in agriculture or so, in a particular area. Economic opportunities or lack of economic opportunities. Sometimes you hear that perhaps a big employer has moved out of the area, and, you know, everybody who used to be employed there is now not employed anymore. So the question then is, what are people doing? And people are organizing to try to figure out what to do, maybe bring somebody else in where they can work. Goals could be to expand opportunities, as I just said, maybe development or bringing in certain businesses and jobs. Under social interests, really the sky's the limit. Sometimes people talk about schools. We hear this a lot, where people are organizing around a school. So they could be, you know, programs that are offered, after school programs that are offered in the school, sometimes language programs that are offered in the school, or you know, like cultural and cultural programs that are offered in the schools. Transportation, sometimes transportation hubs, perhaps, we live in the Bay Area, we have BART stations. Sometimes there's a lot of crime around the BART stations, and people organize around that, just trying to get, more community policing into those areas, things along that nature. And goals could be improving recreational opportunities or public safety, preserving historic resources. If you have an area that's perhaps, eligible for inclusion in the National Register of Historic Places, and, there's usually people that are really interested in this, and they're working to make sure that there's not certain development coming in that will diminish their opportunities, and then perhaps they need to work with a representative or and so forth. So how do you document a community of interest? It's pretty straightforward. Answer the following questions, along those lines, like outline what defines your community of interest, what's your mission or commonality, explain what's different outside of the boundaries of your community of interest. That helps sometimes if you think about it that way. You don't have to tell us, but sometimes if you think about it that way, because you're not entirely sure where the boundaries are, so you think, where do things change? Where am I not working with people anymore? And then, where's your community located in the city? That's really important for us to know, because otherwise, thank you for telling us that you're really well organized, but if we don't know where you live and where that community is, then we can't put it on a map and make sure that you can stay together. So it's really essential. And finally, ignore politics. Disregard the location of incumbents and candidates, as well as the interests of political parties. And this basically prohibits intentional benefit or harm. We just want you to disregard where incumbents or candidates live, and please disregard political parties in this process. Why should you participate? If you need some talking points for people that are not here yet, these are some that usually work pretty well. I've used them on my community, and I got some people to show up at a meeting. So, for one, we need to know where your community of interest is, to give your community a voice and make sure it has equal access to the political process, to encourage citizens to register, vote, and remain politically engaged. You would be surprised about how many people that have participated in districting processes that were well run actually really became engaged and started to register their neighbors, and some of them actually ended up running for office. So it really is an interesting process that can really bring people into a process that they were never engaged with before. And then also to help shape a districting plan that provides communities a meaningful opportunity to elect candidates who represent their interests on issues that are important to their lives. How do you get involved? I've already mentioned this. You can testify at the city council hearings. You can, provide input here, submit written testimony, send supporting information to the city. We would really like to hear from you before May 30, because that's when we're trying to finalize the draft pretty much. So if you tell us about your community of interest afterwards, it just becomes a little bit more difficult. So anything that we get before, because at that point we'd have to just correct things at the city council meeting. I think we're all trying to have as good a map as possible before we go to the city council, so that they don't have to redraw the whole thing. And so let us know what's going on before May 30, please. And you can submit information at a hearing by mail, drop it off at the city clerk's office at City Hall. We have an email, districtelections@ci.oceanside.ca.us. And you can get a lot of information online if you go to the city's webpage. The first link is districting, and just click on that. There is a whole bunch of handouts and flyers. There is everything from frequently asked questions to information about how to make a map, and some of these forms that we have here. You can pull those down. There's going to be more and more maps on there as we get around to posting them. And just generally speaking, we will just push everything out through the website, because this is a very fast-moving process, and I understand that not everybody has web access, but we're hoping that those of you who do have web access and who can reach people that perhaps don't will just provide the information to people and maybe direct them to libraries where there's web access, or maybe print things out. And also let us know if you need handouts or if you need anything for your community. And I'm sure Zach is very happy to work with you and print stuff out for you so you can distribute it in the community. So thank you very, very much for participating. just in general, and for being here today. We'd like to take a very quick break, look at maps again. We'll just gauge it. I'm going to say 10 minutes maybe today, maximal, so you have an opportunity to fill out some forms if you want to. Then we will give you an opportunity to go on the record and kind of explain to us where, your community of interest is, or give us some feedback on how the maps should be drawn if you'd like to do that too. And after that, Jamie's going to take over, and we're going to try to put some districts together. And Jamie has a particular way in which she likes to run this, and I'll explain it to you later. So basically, everybody can just get a couple of minutes and, give some feedback, and we'll take turns so that not just one person is hijacking the entire process, because it gets very exciting, and sometimes everybody may be talking at the same time, and everybody has really good suggestions, but it's really difficult for Jamie to hear everybody at the same time. So we will try to do this one at a time and just make sure that everybody can speak, okay? So let's take a really quick break, and if anybody has any questions, please grab us. And if anyone wants to look at particular areas to see, density or how many people live there, come talk to Jamie right now also, okay? Thank you so much. Oh yeah, and there's cookies and water in the back.
Okay. And we're going to get started with the main reason everyone is here. So yeah, feel free to grab a seat if you could. We'll get situated here momentarily. Feel free to take your time, and if we could work our way back to our seats. Great. All right, real quick, so as everyone gets situated back at their seats, including the Deputy Mayor, I'll encourage the Deputy, no, I'm just kidding. Oh, hello, Deputy Mayor Lowry, good to see you, yeah. If everyone could just grab a seat, that would be wonderful. And we're gonna do 2 phases in this. So first phase is those who've turned in a green form to speak about your community of interest. We'll go through and have each one of those individuals speak for approximately 2 to 3 minutes. And after that, everyone will have the opportunity to speak when Jamie is going through the interactive component with the map drawing, the district drawing. During that period of time, each person will have 2 minutes to speak. I'll ask everyone to line up at this microphone. You only have one time to speak, so make sure take your time to think about what you want to say, and then we'll just run that in an orderly manner, not trying to shout over anyone. We'll just do it one at a time, and I'll keep everyone timed. With that being said, we'll move on to our first. This is just for providing input regarding your community of interest, and then we'll get into the map after that. So our first speaker is Richard Fox.
Hello, Richard Fox, lifetime resident of Oceanside. Scott Ashton from the Chamber usually talks right in front of me at these meetings, and he's very concerned with keeping the businesses kind of equal and represented throughout the whole city. So I just want to throw that in there because he's busy with the military affairs today. I also want to say that Karen and Jamie and Alexis are doing a marvelous job along with the city of Oceanside, and I'm excited about it. So my main concern was that the beach is like our biggest asset. So along the coast, I was thinking that there should not be one district that encompasses the whole coast. So I've come up with some thoughts and some ideas, a map. I don't know if anybody wants to see it right now, but kind of right here following Highway 70, Oceanside Boulevard. Pardon? Same one? Same one? Oh, there it is. Okay. So basically, Scott wanted to make sure there was representation for the businesses all here, because this is very, very rural up here. And I kind of had Jamie drew this out, and it was within 2% of the population. And then I tried to draw one out here, but it was like 44% over. So we took and put Scott's map in here, and then tried to draw this out again, and we had to put a little dip right here to make the populations come out. So this gives 3 different districts along the coast, a district here, and all 4 of these districts are within 2%. You don't have the areas of the city. Can you add that in there? Like South O, Fire Mountain. But this keeps South O, Fire Mountain, Maricosta Lake all intact, Peacock's intact, Cohome's pretty much intact, Morro Hill's intact. So these are like communities of interest. I'm sure there's other ones that other people have, but Loma Alta, right here, maybe this could be extended down a little bit, maybe this could be extended there, pulled back a little bit, I don't know, it depends on the numbers, and that would keep Ivy Ranch from being quite, being cut through. But that's kind of my proposal and thoughts. Definitely nothing I have set in stone, just some ideas.
Thanks, Richard. Our next speaker is Rob Howard. Where's Rob? There you go. Look at that.
What I was specifically, I agree about the coastal area, but because there's really high density along the coast, what I was looking more was each individual district had a section of the coast. You can divvy it up on the density, so it'll be slimmer. You could have the rural area, because this first section is pretty dense right in here. So it wouldn't go out, that district would probably be a lot smaller than the rural districts, but they can come to a certain point and then make their way to the coast. And the same thing where you have the other corridors, this one, looking at the density on those maps, you've got a pretty dense area here. And while it will make for slimmer districts, it would also have each one of those council members with a dog in the fight for their residents. So that's my concern about it, because one, you're talking about the business piece, the recreational piece, and the tourism piece. So you are able to, I think, fit them all in if you run them out. Now, I haven't been on the machine to work those numbers, but I do know this area is pretty dense. So you are talking that it may not go out that far before you get to the 41,000 plus or minus 5%. These others, they'll be larger, and then they can make their way to the coast. And so that's just my perspective on it, of trying to keep them all basically focused on, while we're going away from everyone in the city being one district, we're splitting them up, but that doesn't mean our community of interest isn't the city. And our largest area of focus is our recreational, business, and tourism area. And that's, a lot of it is here, and a lot of that business area in here.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that. Our next speaker is Juan Juarez.
My take on, my name is Juan Juarez, resident, work here at Oceanside as well, veteran, served the United States of America in the Army. But my community of interest is definitely the underserved community, specifically in the Crown Heights area, also East Side, Pozole, Libby Lake, and also a little bit of the Tri-City area. And my interest is the people there. I feel that we need a little bit more resources for that community, particularly in Crown Heights and the East Side Pozole area. I know the community has come together to collectively overturn the charter schools that wanted to come here. So by breaking up those communities, it's going to take away that power for them to be able to come together and work together on that. Also, a lot of that community there goes to the St. Mary's Church. I mean, we all share that commonality. I grew up in the Crown Heights area, and that's where I feel at home here in Oceanside. And being able to having a focus of business is not my take. That's personally not my take. My focus is definitely just the underserved community. A lot of the people there are definitely Mexican people, and also come from a certain region in Mexico, Oaxaca. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Juan. Appreciate that. Our next...
You mentioned the schools, redistricting does not affect school districts.
Correct. So actually...
This districting would not impact
Yes, but I'm
the
saying,
determination charge.
you know, that they come together, just coming together.
Yeah. And just to answer that question, so the city of Oceanside has the Oceanside Unified School District. Those were originally elected at large. They received the same letter that the city of Oceanside did, so they're moving from electing their board members at large to districts. So they'll be going through a similar district process, but we're not in charge of that. That'll be the school district. Yeah, they'll be moving forward with that as well. Our next speaker is Larry.
And I get a laser. First of all, as far as redistricting, my wife and I both 20 years ago are originally from Chicago. Hopefully nobody has a problem with that. So we've been sort of through this before. My chief concern is sort of what started this about 3 years ago. And we live in Jeffrey's Ranch. And we came home one day and our sign was gone and our ways to get in and out of our facility was gone. And there were a couple of council people that did come to our aid to at least find out what the heck happened. However, too little too late, and unfortunately made absolutely no change because we had no real representation. So I think that the idea of representing areas is incredibly important. A gentleman who was sitting here and just sort of moved over there had a interesting idea, because my feeling is it needs to be 6, not 4. I know it's not going to 6, but it really needs to go to 6 because we are, come on, you can work. I got it, I found it. I don't need the clerk to tell me. So, here's 76, and we are, Jeffries, we're about here, okay, in this area. From what I saw the drawing, I didn't know where college was from the drawing that you had made. So if I'm looking at college and then I'm looking at maybe 6 blocks down to like where the post office is, was that one district over here?
Yeah, I don't believe it's yeah, it went down there. There we go.
Right, so... Right, but I was looking to where college, okay, that's what I wanted to see, because then the one thing that we have, we don't necessarily get beach access, but I've got that entire business park with Coca-Cola bottling. We will also have the ability with Genentech in there, so I think that at least that area will have some muscle, because my concern is, what are we trying to do? I know in Jeffrey's Ranch, here's what I want to preserve. Your pointer, first of all. Secondly, boy, is this a good... I got to get one in. Okay. So, the second thing that we need is we want to protect our equestrian areas. We want to protect our agricultural areas. We're close to Morrow Hills. That idea of putting 700 units in there was repugnant. So, we need to be able to preserve what we have on that side, and that's twofold. Lots of shopping, lots of business, and some real good communities. We have schools involved in there, and though we don't have any representation for the schools, we are going to be responsible for some of the infrastructure. We are going to be responsible for some of the roads because people can't get there, and those are going to have to be expenditures that we're going to look at. So I wanted to say, I really think we need 6 instead of 4, but if we have to start with 4, I like what you proposed. I think thinner districts, unfortunately, I've got too much to worry about with where I am to really worry about the beach. I think that supporting it is important, but to be able to have a dog in the fight for that concerns me. I think I have a bigger dog in the fight if I've got the industrial and where tax revenue and dollars come from. So for a start, I like what you've drawn. I just want to make sure that the absolutely inaccurate 2010 numbers of where we are in 2017, or at least population is represented effectively, if that made sense. Thank you, Zach.
Oh, there you go. Thanks. Our next, there you go, that's good. Our next speaker is Lisa Hamilton. Thank you so much.
I am wanting to speak about a very small part of Oceanside, which is the Coastal Neighborhood Association. And our boundaries are from Mission to Oceanside Boulevard and from the 5 to Pacific. The reason I want to speak about it is because we want to be kept together. We actually have Crown Heights in our boundaries. We do not have a lot of connection between Crown Heights Neighborhood Association and the Oceanside Coastal Neighborhood Association. The language barrier divides us. We have been to Crown Heights, and they have been very obliging at doing simultaneous translation. And if we had people who came to the Coastal Neighborhood Association and let us know in advance, particularly that they were coming, we would have simultaneous translation for them. But as it stands, we are divided by language barrier. However, what I really want to speak about is the whole beach thing. The Coastal Neighborhood Association has a functioning neighborhood association which has been meeting monthly for 12 years. That's an extraordinary length of time for neighborhood associations, because usually they are formed in response to a crisis, and when the crisis goes away, so does the neighborhood association. This has been meeting for 12 years, and everyone is welcome. You don't have to be a member. You don't have to pay dues. We welcome everybody to our monthly meetings to talk. If they tell us in advance, they can speak on the program. Otherwise, we have a program that addresses what we see as immediate city problems. One of the problems that we are thinking about and will be addressing increasingly is the height and density of the beach area. We are a low-rise, largely owner-occupied community. We have been a very homogeneous neighborhood. If we go to having high-rises and having people who are largely renters, particularly people who are short-term renters, becoming a problem, we feel that this will diminish our ability to stay as a neighborhood association and be able to speak for our residents. So we want to be sure that we are kept together, that in no way can we be divided.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, our last speaker on this portion is Linda Walsh.
I don't need, can you help me with the pen if I need it? Because I have a bad eye. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Linda Walshaw. I'm on the Oceanside City Housing Commission, and I'm also, I've served on 2 citywide boards representing all of the manufactured home communities here in Oceanside. That's about 6,000 people, and we're spread out all over the city. Right now, we have a group called the Oceanside Mobile Home Advisory Committee. We have representatives in every park. Mr. Knott is the one for La Salina, and he's the only other person besides myself representing the parks here today. There's been some talk of keeping the parks together as communities of interest. However, I think it's more important, after talking to our representatives in different neighborhoods, that we look at the demographics involved, because some of our parks are family parks, low-income families. Some of them are senior parks. Some of them are owned by large corporations, some by private owners, some are land-owned, where the homeowners own the land underneath. So while we share some common interests by the virtue of the fact that we are a mobile home park, it's not necessarily relevant to the neighborhoods. So I would think it would make more common sense to look at our senior communities, because although the census numbers show that we have a population over 65 of about 12.9%, as I understand it, currently we have about 51% of seniors over the age of 50 in Oceanside. That's a huge chunk of people, and most of them on fixed incomes, and more baby boomers turning 50 every year. So in addition to the senior parks, we also have communities like Oceana and Costa Serena and Peacock Hills. We have senior apartments along the coast and off of Lake Boulevard. We have a park off of Lake Boulevard. So we're spread out all over the city. So I don't think it makes any sense to divide them by virtue of the fact that they are a mobile home park, but more by their commonalities, by population, by age, by the needs so that our seniors and our low-income families are divided up equally as much as we can so that they are fairly represented in each district and that they get the services and common interests that they need, like transportation and things that are unique to their communities. So that's kind of all I had to say today, and thank you for listening. Thank you, Zach.
Our final speaker is actually Cindy Rocco.
Let's see, I'm going to do this. Thanks. Thank you. I'm going to try to avoid it. My original concept is still to go with quadrants instead of having slices come into the beach, to have 4 squares, because then you're going to get the congruency, plus you're going to get the compactness. And if you can stay as close to that kind of a quadrant mentality, then I think you meet more of the objectives and goals of the districting. One of the things, though, that is a big concern is, for me, personally, is the beach, because of all the development and everything going on down there. And I believe that it needs to somehow be, if we went into quadrants, it would be a 50-50 on the coastline. But we can't just draw a line and say, okay, we're going to go to Mission and we're going to go to Oceanside Boulevard, because the densities are quite different. I wasn't able to do the interactive map like Jamie, but I was able to go and manually put together just the coast. I don't know if I put it over here. Okay. All right. Sorry. Didn't make it complicated, but I just took everything that was west of 5. I took the Highway 5 and cut it out. I had started to do the rest of the city, and it's just mind-boggling that I didn't have what Jamie has. So I had to go on and click every single voting block. So anyway, the main differentiators are, and this is why I didn't really like the triple break, is that there's a total of 18,272, give or take maybe 1, people west of 5. Right now with the 3 slices is 3,218 on the top, 9,212 in the center, and down below Oceanside Boulevard is 5,843. So you can see in the 3 slices, I took exactly that map, and there's a big differentiator as far as density. The other big concern, and so I would suggest or recommend that we do something that would be along Wisconsin Street, because then that would, hang on a second. Wait, the ocean's back. I gotta see it this way. That's okay. So you have about 5,000, about 3,000, and then you have the 9,000 in there. So right about here, instead of Oceanside Boulevard, you'd bring it up here, and that's about where Wisconsin is. And that would divide the population approximately in 2 from a density perspective. The only thing you need to do, though, is you have to go up Wisconsin, but you need to take a dog leg left, and you need to capture Crown Heights. Because that population is almost about 2,000. So yeah, if you're going, let's see, across Wisconsin, right? And then you'd have to go here and then dog leg up to the left. So here's the 5, and so you're going to capture Crown Heights, which is a really high density area. But that's what will break these 2 apart in a more even fashion. And the other thing is, the other concern I have, well, what this does, the other concern I have is right now, if we did Mission, you're dividing downtown straight down the center. So right there, if you think about it, I mean, maybe I'm projecting, but if there was 2 councilmen or women that wanted to do a development, and it's going to benefit one side or the other side, that's 2 votes. I'm not saying it's a definite thing that's going to happen, but it's a big, big possibility. So, so I think that that's something that we really need to pay attention to. The other thing is that with the gentleman had talked about, the gangs and such. Doing something like this, I think each, the kids kind of get underprivileged, they kind of get looked over. So if you had Crown Heights in one half, and you had East Side in the other half, Okay, and then if you go in the upper quadrant, I guess that's Libby Lake, and then in the other quadrant that I was talking about, maybe I guess Tri-City area, then you have a councilperson that's personally accountable to that area, that underprivileged area, and I think it improves the representation from that regard too. Great. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I do have a map that she brought out that actually can meet this need, at least the first quadrant. Okay. I have to go to sleep after that.
Thank you so much. Okay, so now we're going to transition to the next portion of the meeting. So the way we're going to run this, correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, so if you wish to speak during this portion, all you have to do is line up at this microphone. You'll have 2 minutes to speak each, but I think Jamie is going to begin actually putting together some of these different components. So let me hand it over to you.
Thanks. Yes, and before we do that, I'm gonna just show some of the communities of interest that we already have so that everybody can sort of see what testimony has been like. And again, these are, this is something we can use as the sort of building blocks of districts to look at it. These are all communities of interest that people have asked to be kept whole and intact and in one district together. So again, just to give everybody a sense of what's already been said today, or so far in this process, excuse me. Right, and then after we do that, then we can start building the districts, and if people can line up by the microphone if they wish to speak, and please only one person speaking at a time, and then if you want to have another turn afterwards, then you can go to the back of the line and then wait your turn for your next turn. Okay. Oh, thank you. So everybody has already seen, we already had on the map this neighborhoods layer. This is from the city's website, and I'm just having this up there also as sort of a frame of reference because it seems like it's not true in every city or every community, but it seems like people in Oceanside really identify with the neighborhoods as are presented by the city. So, and that's not true of all of them, but there have been, of all cities, excuse me, but there has been community of interest saying that Oceana is a community of interest. And you can see, so this area that is in green right here on the map is the community of interest of Oceana that somebody testified about. I digitized it, and then we can come back and everybody see it all together. So that's what's on the map right now. There's been testimony that Fire Mountain is a community of interest that would all like to stay together and intact. South Oceanside as a neighborhood that also identifies as a community of interest. Sort of staying in that area, this is a larger community of interest. This is, somebody's testimony was saying that South Oceanside and Fire Mountain should be together in one district. And moving north a little bit, this was also a community of interest that was testified about. I believe this is Loretta, the 5, and then Holly and Bush is this intersection. So as you can see, some of the community of interests are a lot smaller than others. Also in this same area, this was somebody saying that this whole area east between Canyon and the 5, and this is Oceanside, and I think this is also somewhere around Loretta, should be with the harbor. So that was another community of interest that was presented. We have heard a bit in other meetings as well as today about this sort of northeastern section of the city being an agricultural area that would like to remain intact and in one district. There has been testimony that everything north of 76 could be in one district or could be considered a community of interest. This was also presented as a potential district. It's this sort of northeast agricultural area, and then this area of Peacock is included for population purposes. I'm bringing up two communities of interest. These are separate communities of interest, and they haven't asked necessarily to be together, but both of these communities of interest, there was testimony saying that there's a lot of seniors who live there, and that those two separate areas would like to be intact and in one district. And again, more of this agricultural area. This is another submission. It's just Morrow Hills in this version. Here is another community of interest. It's along Rancho del Oro, and this was saying that saying keeping the communities on both sides of Rancho del Oro together in one district, as opposed to saying that that's a dividing line, saying that Rancho del Oro is actually a thoroughfare that people are organizing around. So that's showing both sides of this of the street there. And this is another another community of interest saying that the boundaries here are Rancho del Oro, Oceanside Boulevard, El Camino Real, and the city limits here to the south. And there's just a few more. This is also South Oceanside, but as defined by sort of the boundary going up along the creek here, Loma Alta Creek. There was one other submission for a district. This is including South Oceanside, Fire Mountain, Mira Costa, Loma Alta, and Oceana in one district. And lastly, this Mira Costa and Tri-City area was also submitted as a community of interest, saying that they would like to stay together and in one district in this process. And those are all of the individual communities of interest we have today. My apologies that if you submitted your community of interest online yesterday, I haven't had a chance to digitize those yet. And sort of the qualitative, there was some submissions in that saying to keep the coast whole and in one district, and there were others that have been reflected sort of in this Mira Costa area also.
And when is the deadline to submit that?
The deadline to submit communities of interest is May 30th. Yes.
Jamie, other than the map last 2 weeks, anyone request that community interest include also separately the Capistrano area, including Lake all about to the Ocean Hill?
Let me see. Capistrano out to where?
Well, separately, did anyone mention regarding community interest, the Capistrano area, one, and then secondly, did anyone mention for community interest, the area including Lake all the way out to
Oh, I see. There's been some testimony about this area, or saying that portions of Eastside Capistrano should be with the harbor, and there have been some maps or like whole plans submitted that saying Lake and Ocean Hills should be like in certain districts or certain parts of considered with other parts of the cities, but there hasn't been any communities of interest specifically on those communities themselves. Thank you. Yes.
Tag along, related to his item, isn't geographically the way Lake and Ocean Hills is kind of that little stuff that kind of sticks out. It's almost like it's going to be attached to something anyway.
Yes, so because of the geography of the city, and we can see that Lake and Ocean Hills are, just sort of more south and separate, sort of down below Somebody described it as the part that's kicking Carlsbad. I don't know if that's like a common thing you guys say. But, right, so because of that and just the shape of it and where it's located, I think that it's very safe to assume that Ocean Hills and Lake will be together in one district, and also just so everybody knows, that area has a population of between 11 and 12,000 people. So that's almost 25% of your district, or a little over 25% of a district. So those will have to go with some area up here. Yeah. Thank you. That's a good question.
Jamie, would you like to move forward to public testimony?
Yeah, let's move forward to public testimony.
Great. So 2 minutes of time. I'll give you a thumbs up when time is up.
Okay.
All right.
Jimmy Knott, 127 Cherry Lane. I was asked by a few people to bring up issues that others won't bring up because they're controversial. One is ghettoization by concentration of low income levels into certain districts. Those areas, as an example, are Canyon, the new Mission Cove area where there seems to be a concentration of low income, new senior ghettos like Lake and College, and a couple other areas. That's one. The diversity issue, where we're taking, instead of having it citywide, to concentrate certain races, minority people, and it's more than just race anymore, into certain areas and kicking out other people that were historic areas. Another issue, homeless issues. And this is where the areas where they have historically lived, Goat Hill, the Transit Center, Airport Road, the other side of Canyon, along the San Luis River. And finally, another issue that needs to be looked at is the gang neighborhoods, because all these are concentrated into potentially singular districts, and also the city attention to some of these areas, like the Sun Project, where the city spends a lot of money on that area that is addressing these issues, and the city has repeatedly spent millions over the years into addressing these issues, and at the expense of other districts, and I was told. Thank you.
Yeah, anyone can line up and speak. And Jamie, just real quickly, do you have any content that you're wanting the public to provide that would be helpful for this particular portion?
I think that right now for this portion, like basically, so we're going to start drawing a draft, and just we have to start somewhere. Usually it makes sense to start either on like the city limits somewhere, so that there's not like a pocket of population left over that needs to be, that isn't included in a different district.
Great. So would you like to draw first and then have the public provide some input?
Yeah, maybe we can get like a general sense of where, in the room, of where people think that we should start. Anybody have
I'd like to see, though, if it's not too difficult, thank you. Hi, I'd like to see, if it's not too much trouble, what it would look like if there was 4 strata, 4 sections, rather than what Richard drew.
Just across, like...
Well, look at a quadrant, A, and then look at this 4 strata, just to see.
Do you mean like 4 long districts?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna do, first I'm gonna do the quadrants, and we can look at that and sort of pull up different communities of interest and see what's intact and what's not intact. And then I'm gonna do the 4 lines, and we can see what's intact and what's not intact. And also, just for everybody to know, for the sake of time, neither of these are gonna be perfect. They're just gonna be quickly doing the rough populations, and then we can move on from there. Cool. Okay, one moment. And that's okay, I don't mind holding it, thank you. And also I have this box that's going to be showing here. This will show the population that we're working with, so the population of each of the districts. This first line is the district population, how many people are in there, and it'll show the deviation and percent deviation, so we can all see it grow together.
And as Jamie's doing that, just a reminder, since this is going to get kind of exciting, you guys are going to start seeing the districts, if we just kind of really focus on that, not interrupt her when she's doing it, that would be really helpful.
May I just ask, is there any way you can blow up the legend a little bit?
I'm sorry.
Blow up the legend?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
But I can read them, Okay.
I could too if I got up there.
Okay, and because today we heard testimony about using something near Wisconsin as a boundary for the, for the quadrant idea, then that's what I'm just starting with for now.
I want to also just point something out. When Jamie is selecting, she's selecting right now these units of analysis. These are census units of analysis. So basically these chunks that she's adding, okay? So sometimes she's using census tracts, and then once she starts doing things along borders, she's going to use census blocks. And sometimes census blocks really look a little funny, and that has to do with whether or not they're in rural or more urban areas. It has to do with density and with available streets and visible features. So you saw this perhaps in that one community of interest where she said she selected the blocks along a particular transportation corridor, and it looked really weird. Well, it looked really weird because there is, some of these areas are not densely populated, and the census blocks are drawn in a way that they kind of reach out a little bit to grab some, perhaps a creek or a ridge line or a fence line or whatever is visible, so that they could delineate that. So sometimes it looks a little weird, but that's not what the districts are going to look like. So if you see something that looks funny, please ask us, and we'll explain it, okay?
This is their special.
So basically, what Jamie's doing here right now is, and if you can see this little box, is you see on the upper right, there is unassigned population, and that number keeps going down as she selects little units and sticks them into the district that she's assigning to right now. So that district that she's drawing right now currently has a population of something like, now it has 50,000, but it also says ideal value. That's the ideal population, which you'll remember we talked about earlier. So that's what we're shooting for, and then at the very bottom it says percent deviation. So currently the new district is the one that she's drawing right now. The unassigned is the population in the city that she still has available to her. So that's the third district that she's building, and then of course once she has that one, then we have all four, because the leftover goes into the fourth district. So this should give you a good idea of the population distributions also. And again, this is a very quick one, right?
Yeah.
So we're not looking at anything else, just to give you an idea of.
Thanks.
Okay, so again, this was, and I know it doesn't really turn out like a it didn't turn out like a quadrant. And here, okay, here's what these districts are. This red one is A. It's a negative 0.13% deviation. This is about Wisconsin, and then Oceanside, moving up El Camino Real. This is Mesa, Rancho del Oro, and then sort of coming up here on 76. This green district has 4.33% deviation. It's South Oceanside, Fire Mountain, etc. This is Oceanside Boulevard, down Rancho del Oro, and sort of picking up these areas of Tri-Cities and Lake, etc. This blue district has negative 0.13% deviation. Oh, I'm sorry. The first one had negative 1.03% deviation. This one has negative 0.13% deviation. And this again is Oceanside and Rancho del Oro, Mesa. I'm sorry, El Camino Real, Mesa, Rancho del Oro, and then along 76 out to the city limits. And that was negative 0.31 or 0.13% deviation, and then this rest of this area is the remainder of the city that was not already included, and that is negative 3.17% deviation. Again, this is not like a totally perfect,
Yes.
you know, right, yeah. So that is what that looked like, sort of trying really quickly based on the quadrants.
What would happen if you kept the OCNA area all together, which is, instead of cutting at Wisconsin, cut at Oceanside Boulevard?
If we went down to if we made that change, then this red district has 9.14% deviation, and the green one is negative 5.84%. So we just need to pick up some more population for this district and lose. It would be like a trade around the city. Yeah. Right. So right. So this would pick up some population from the blue district. The blue one would then need some population to get from this area, and then this area would take some of this population of the red.
That would make more sense.
Yeah.
I'm gonna save this and then do the 4 lines, and then we will move on from there.
Okay.
And this is just gonna take 1 second to save it.
After you save it, can you superimpose the communities of interest? Oh, yeah. That's later, okay.
Oh, yes. Good manual.
Can I go ahead and go?
Okay, and some of these communities of interest, here we have Oceana intact, Fire Mountain and South Oceanside, of course, are intact. This district of South Oceanside and Fire Mountain together, yes. This smaller one, which has the intersection of Holly and Bush and out to I-5 is together. This rural sort of northeastern community of interest is intact. This proposed district, of course, is split in this version. This district, which was about the seniors population, is split, as well as this other community of interest, which was also proposed. No, yes, so this is, so again, this one is unbalanced now. We changed it, so it's down to Oceanside. And so there would still need to be some like little switcheroos.
But it's easy to see that some of those senior communities could make the difference in the, moving the numbers around.
Southeast District. And we can see here that this Miracosta and Tri-Cities community of interest is also split in this plan. So again, this one is not balanced. We would need to make changes to it before it would even be acceptable to propose. And it's saved, and I'm gonna move on to doing the 4 long districts.
We're all jealous of your softball.
Yeah, we want to do this softball.
So cool. Oh, yeah, sure.
Exactly.
She does.
Experts.
Okay, for this, I think I'm going to start in the south, and I'm going to start with this that part for this.
Boot.
Okay, well, the Walmart is Oceanside, but Quarry Creek is
Go north.
So this is already at 4% deviation, so I'm just gonna leave it how it is.
It's kind of too fat. It won't get full.
Someone said we have the most Walmarts in the country. Oceanside has 5 Walmarts.
So you'll see already that there is one of the constraint is really just your city boundary, because you have that, what somebody just called a dog leg. So the dog leg basically needs to be attached to something. So if you want to take the dog leg and you want to still go to the ocean, and you have to add population, and remember, you have to have a contiguous district, so it has to be in one piece, and it should be relatively compact, so we don't want to, we don't want tentacles going out there that we, when we're drawing these, so it's probably a little fatter than people thought it was going to be.
Wait, I think that's in the middle of my house. Right down the middle of your bed. One of you guys has got one district and the other is the other.
You gotta be careful, if you step in the kitchen,
Yeah.
you're in another district.
I can't talk to you right now. That's it? Be knocking on my door all day long. Yeah.
We want the whole house.
Which district are you representing then? South of That's a nightmare.
Well, I'm just looking at, the suggestion.
All right, so here's a quick draw up of something that could be the quadrants. And again, we started down here with the boot, or the dog leg, what's that?
Nope.
The strata? Oh, yeah, right, excuse me, for the strata. And this, again, is just about Oceanside Boulevard and everything south of that, and the percent deviation of that is 4% over. And with this green district, the percent deviation is negative 1.32%, and on the coast, that is Michigan Avenue. And it moves up here to the 76, and then moving east, comes down on Fusat Road, and then continuing east on Mesa. And it looks like it continues, east on Mesa, and then here near the lake, Wahomie Lake, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Then again, up to 76, out to Spur. So this is actually still connected, it's just really small.
It's, you cut a community. You broke up a neighborhood.
Yeah, but a lot of that stuff. I'm sure we
Yeah, there's, again, this was just a really quick, doing it real fast. Yep. And this blue district is 1.3%, 1.36% deviation. And this, well, this actually didn't touch the shore exactly itself, but does, of course, include some of West Oceanside. So this is just north of Mission on 3rd Street, and picks up some of this area, just east of the Strand. And then coming up I-5, following the river, and it keeps following the river. And then this is Los Arbolitos, Cocoa Palms Drive, Paula Road, Academy, down to the 76, sort of just jogs up here a little bit south of the river, and then follows North River Road just about out to the city limits, and then the rest is everything north of that. And I'm going to go through and show the communities of interest in this one. Oceana is whole and intact. Of course, Fire Mountain and South Oceanside are as well. This little community, Holly and Bush area, is still intact. This community of interest, which has the harbor, sort of with some of this East Oceanside community, is split. This northeast rural Morrow Hills area is split. This district, or this community of interest, excuse me, that was based on some of the seniors population is split, as well as, this seniors area and Oceana area is intact. Again, Morrow Hills. this community of district is intact, which has this area like west of Rancho del Oro. Of course, the Rancho del Oro corridor is split into 3 districts. And yep, the Mira Costa Tri-Cities area is just a tiny bit split. And I'm going to save a snapshot of this too.
I just want to say, just so I see what
We just had one more one to share some communities of interest.
Oh, yeah, kind of like, I thought she was going to be able to like say them.
Okay, yeah. If you need to point out.
Hi, as a lifetime resident of Oceanside, I feel like I know the neighborhoods very well. So I just want to say my community interest would be the coastal area. I grew up in the Crown Heights area, and then I lived in the East Side area for the last couple of years. So I think those should be together as well, along with the Mission Avenue and Coast Highway. Capistrano area, I feel like it's kind of, what is it, north of the 76, and the harbor should be together, and then maybe Fire Mountain area to Oceanside Boulevard, maybe El Camino should be, along with the coast, should be one, and then maybe in the valley, like from, I want to say maybe Canyon, like Fusat area would be another community of interest, all the way to Deep Valley, which would be like around this area, I'm not, Vandergrift. And then Rancho del Oro, Tri-City, and Maricosta, I feel like are like a community because you have Maricosta College, and then I know a lot of the people that go to Maricosta live around there, go to Tri-City. And then the lake area should be connected maybe to Tri-City. And then the agriculture area, like Deep Valley, Vandergrift would be another community. I know those are just some areas, communities of interest that I feel like I've been involved in. Okay, thanks.
Okay, we're also going to try another really quick variation with the coast intact, because we've also heard community of interest testimony saying to keep the coast intact as well. So we're going to start there, and then maybe based on, well, and then does it make sense to try and include, if the coast was intact, which is about 18,000 people, so over half of the district is going to be east of the 5, what area does it make sense to start adding to the coast from there?
Fire Mountain.
You think Fire Mountain? Okay.
Rancho del Oro.
How would you do Rancho del Oro?
I mean, if we just dream it out here.
And while she's doing that, just to let you know, I know we're approaching 4 o'clock, but thanks for being here. We're going to keep going, so just let you know, I know that we're scheduled for 2 to 4. We're just going to keep going, so please stay as long as you can. Just wanted to let you know that it's almost 4 o'clock, but just thank you so much.
Yeah, that's fine.
So as this is all of the coast plus Fire Mountain, which is still negative 40% deviation. There was also some testimony that we just heard about East Capistrano being with the harbor, and we already have that community of interest. Maybe we can just start adding east all along the 5, see how it goes?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put the neighborhood layers up just so we can all kind of see what's going on here. So right now, this is 7.05% deviation, and the boundaries here, airport, and then it's sort of splitting Loma Alta, and Fire Mountain is intact. We have to take out about 1,000 people, and where does it make sense to start detracting from?
Valley.
So that's the airport area? And that was just one census block, so I can't take out less than that, but maybe, okay.
So just to let you know about what's going to happen at the next meeting, we're going to keep working on these drafts. So we'll either figure out that some of these are not going to work at all, and then we'll just stop working on them, or we'll start putting some of these drafts together into one. So we'll basically just keep on working on those, okay? We're not shooting for perfection today. We still have some time to do that, and also, you know, as people are giving us more feedback on it, and as you all had an opportunity to think about this, we'll be able to just, you know, work on the details of everything here.
This is a great exercise.
I know.
It will take you 2 years to learn how to use it.
Well, it's higher.
So, and I think all of you know that Jamie has a lot of these communities of interest, of course, already memorized. So when she's building these, while she's really doing what we would call it down and dirty here, when she notices that she's going into a particular community of interest, she's going to try to just find a way around it, just as she's building it. So that's why there is a little bit of selecting and unselecting. And also, again, you see how these blocks are sometimes, you know,
Irregular.
very irregular.
Quick question, what is those, what are the areas when she clicks on it, it creates an area? What are those based on?
Sometimes, that's census geography. So it's census geography.
Putting into little neighborhoods already.
Yeah, because, I mean, the census, they don't really necessarily care about neighborhoods. They care about having, you know, units that have visible boundaries on which they can report data.
I see.
So.
They're not voting precincts?
No, not at all. And voting precincts, they actually change pretty frequently, so, and the census also doesn't really care about precincts. So that's where it gets interesting with all of these things.
It's cold in here.
And the reason for why we're using census blocks is that census blocks are the lowest unit on which the census reports data. So if you're going lower than a census block, or you were attempted to split a census block, then we definitely don't know what the population is, because we don't know how many people are on each side of the street, for example. Okay, so basically census blocks are the smallest that we can go.
All right, so again, this was just a really quick draft, and this was based on keeping the shoreline intact. It includes South Oceanside, Fire Mountain, Town Site, East Side, most of East Side Capistrano. I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm talking about the blue right now, which is 4.96% deviation, so it's on the high end, and this is, which is still totally acceptable. This is South El Camino Real, Oceanside, let me see what this street is. Oh, again, Fusat. And then moving up 76, this is the boundary, I believe, of Airport, and that is not on a street, but it's in between Fireside Drive and the river. And then moving up, this is these communities just north of the river. I think these are probably all really small streets. It's Crestwood, Walla, West Airport Road. And then moving up to the city limits, and of course it includes the harbor as well. This red district is 0.58% deviation. This is El Camino Real right here, and again, this is Fusat. So then 76, down Rancho del Oro, east on Mesa, south on College, and then to the city limits, and of course is including the boot. This green district is actually gonna add a little bit more because this is still underpopulated. I'm gonna add a little bit more to the red one because it's point.
It's the only one that keeps us together.
Oh, this one has too little, so it needs some. All right, so in this configuration, this empty part, the part that isn't filled in, needs population, and right now it's bordering Morro Hills, or sort of this area that we just went over. Does it make more sense to take it over here, south of the river? Where does it make most sense to take it from? Or does this configuration, as it is right now, just not make sense and we should start from a different place?
It doesn't make sense. It makes no sense. No sense at all.
That's beach. That's beach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Show of hands.
I'm going to save it as a snapshot, and we can keep working on it later.
That's fine. No, you can save it.
Just a quick show of hands for that last one, just because, so everyone has, so if you didn't like the district that was just drawn, that proposal, did not like it. And,
Did not.
okay.
Oh, okay.
All right, I think that's good for Jamie to know, so that would just for the, okay, good. Yeah, who likes the district? Okay, so we have 3. Okay, that's good. I just want to make sure everyone has a chance to have their voice heard. Okay, perfect, thank you.
I understand his reason.
And again, all of them that we've done today, we know that none of them are perfect, and all of them need more work from there. And of course, we're going to try and incorporate our community of interest testimony, et cetera, when we're building them. And none of these are like what is going to be submitted to City Council, of course.
are next steps?
So as Jamie's doing this, so our next steps, we're going to have another meeting this upcoming Tuesday. It's going to be at Lake Elementary School at 6 p.m. Basically, we're going to do the same thing, only we're going to spend an extended amount of time continuing on drawing these districts. So we're not yet.
Before you run away, so we want to do one more, just a concept kind of drawing, okay? We have had some testimony that neighborhoods in Oceanside are all individual communities of interest, and we're going to try to just put neighborhoods together and see which neighborhoods we could put together to build districts and how that would work. Okay? I mean, these are really just concept maps, right? Yeah.
Right.
And when we're doing it, we're also going to keep the community of interest other community of interest testimony in mind as well. And I think this time I'm going to, because it seems like the shoreline is a really a hot topic that there's like a lot of different opinions about, right? Some people are like, keep it all together in one. Some people are like, all 4 districts. So right now I'm just gonna start in this northeast corner with Morro Hills and Guajome and just go from there, keeping community of interest testimony in mind, keeping the neighborhoods in mind, and see what happens.
Yeah,
okay.
Great.
No, this is something to see.
Yes.
And we're all fascinated by the software. So.
Yeah, we all want it.
The operator.
2 years of training.
If I throw in the data for voting trends, will it show me that?
We don't want to hear that.
Just hypothetical.
Okay.
Okay, so right now I'm adding the, This was a district that was submitted as a community of interest by somebody in the business community saying to keep this agricultural area intact, to add it down south to Peacock, which was also, I think, echoed by somebody here today who lives in that area.
Well,
Yes.
I happen to live in that area, and I don't agree with that, but go on.
I'm struggling with it too.
How would you modify?
It's still negative, oh, sorry, here we go.
Well, if, you know, I understand the whole Morro Hills agricultural area, and I think going down as far as Peacock is a little bit aggressive, that it should be actually more west, wherever it says north, whatever that is.
North Valley?
Yeah.
So it's still negative 16.75% deviation, so maybe we can now from there grab the North Valley.
Yeah.
Because, okay.
There's, you know, there's good and bad. You put all this together, and, you know, they have one vote out of how to carve up Morro Hills, which is very scary.
Yeah,
I mean, that's my concern right there is from the first map where there was 3 parts of the coast and then this last section, I just saw this last section as being the trash can for the beach. Where the 3 sections, we need some money, let's build more houses out there. Let's put a billboard out there. Let's just dump on it out there. So that's my concern.
Yeah, and that's reality.
I'm not expecting that. I hear all of the concerns. As far as that goes, I think that my bigger concern would be breaking. There's no way that you're going to get, in my opinion, intelligent beach community to have a beach property in every piece. My thing is that if I want to protect Morro Hills, which I do desperately, the only way to do that is to be savvy enough to have the industry piece, and I wasn't the one who submitted it, but to have the industry piece with the agricultural piece. Because I need the leverage to be able to protect Morro Hills. That's my only concern.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me, last speaker.
It also, we need 6, not 4.
Well, yeah. We already got that.
Just want to make sure everybody knows that.
6 and 7?
No.
It's not too late.
All right, so that was a very densely populated area, and right now the selection, what it's selecting is this area that is highlighted in red. It's west of Vandergrift, and this line is Calle del Palo. This is Moonstone Bay Drive, Santa Fe Avenue, Santa Maria, etc. Does this still seem like a good place to take that population from?
I'd go south.
I think that...
I'd go along Oceanside Boulevard.
Yep. I think more bordering on Camp Pendleton would be the logical way to do it.
To grab population from the city limits up here?
Yeah, because they would have more an affinity towards that area.
Are you adding or taking away?
Adding.
I don't want.
So along Pendleton, I think, probably.
What if we took that out and went further south?
You go south.
We could go south, and a reminder is that without this, it was negative 16%, so it needs about 7,000 people. So it needs to be from somewhere that, that there are people.
Really?
Mm-hmm, really.
How long did we go to school to learn that?
I mean, as opposed to somewhere where, it's like, yeah, and in this agricultural area, it makes so much sense to add this other not densely populated area where there's going to be fewer people.
And in Chicago, we did count cemeteries with bodies in them as voters. They were voters. No, they were still voters. A certain candidate. They were still voters. Yep.
Well, I can attest, they do not vote here.
While Jamie, Linda just brought up a great point. While Jamie's finishing this, just real quick, so it was brought up at the last city council meeting, if you were not able to attend, the general fund is still going to be distributed equivalently through all the 4 city council members. So if a city council member is seated in an area that's primarily coastal with more TOT and things of that nature, that revenue is still going to go to the other districts as well. Obviously, that's a whole nother more political dynamic, but I just want to let you know that that was what was explained at the last city council meeting, is that the budgetary components are going to be equivalently distributed throughout the city. However, there are elements that could come from that, but that's a much bigger conversation. I just want
Until when? Is that just for this current?
No, in perpetuity. So the general fund is going to continue to be distributed equivalently throughout the city, but city council members will do their thing to.
Right.
Yeah, but that's a totally different conversation. Yeah.
All right, I hear it.
Just another question as a follow-up to what Jane was saying earlier, and that is, do we have an opportunity to respond to the communities of interest that have been defined, where one person might think that a community of interest is great and it should be together, but I might not agree with it for whatever reason. So it's not just because I say it should be a community of interest does not mean that it should carry 100% weight.
Yeah, of course. I think you are welcome to submit your community of interest expertise also. Yeah. And, sometimes not everybody agrees on either the boundaries or that certain communities should be together. So, yeah, exactly. And sometimes, as you see that the process unfolds and you see that perhaps some communities said initially they wanted to be together, they can't be together because, or there's a trade-off between either these two together or other two together, and then, people decide basically which ones are more important to keep together just because of, whatever reasons. So, yeah, please just submit your feedback.
Yeah, and to that end, if you haven't already, please fill this out and turn this into myself or to our department. This is the Community of Interest form. They're also available online. And if you have members within your community who you believe have a similar view of your community of interest as well, have them fill it out and turn it in. But these all need to be in by the 30th, so we have about 10 days to do that. So I'd strongly recommend turning those in. And if we have extras here as well.
So, Karen, excuse me. So how do we know what communities of interest have been submitted? If we would like to object to a community of interest, are you going to publish those online?
I think we're trying to get them. Yeah, we'll probably have to talk to the GIS guys to see how quickly they can upload them. But, Jamie went, I'm sorry. Jamie went through them, but, I wouldn't say that you should object to them. I would just say that you should just submit your own testimony and just say, here's what I think.
Here's what I think.
Yeah, because we're not going to be the judges of, but please just give us your feedback.
All right, and I'm gonna swing things back to the map really quick. So with this area that would be added, again, that's the city limits up there in North Valley. That's negative 4.36% deviation. And this is, again, to the boundary of Airport neighborhood in North Valley, above the lake, above the river. And then this is coming along Wayland Lake Road. This is Point Sur, Point Degata, and moving up Douglas Drive. And then here's Redondo Drive. So this is what this version of that would look like. Again, we're trying to add to this district about, 5,000 to 7,000 people.
What street is going all the way down on the side on the left? Is that College or?
This is Vandergrift.
Okay, and then down further to the rest of that. So.
Can you describe that?
Well, no. What you're looking at right now. So that border, I'm curious of. Where your mouse was.
This.
Yes.
That's College.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I wouldn't call that. Turn that here. Yeah.
No, that's not.
Or we can also look at adding down here in like between College and the city limits, this area, south of Oceanside Boulevard. This is, I think, a really good example of where districting, can become really tricky, where it's like the line has to go somewhere, population is what it is, where it is, and you have to make some tricky decisions sometimes.
Yeah. I think our interest over on the right side, I think our interest is very much about Morrow Hills, College and the 76, and that we would probably rather collect some neighborhoods along the 76 than to go all the way up to Pendleton. Although the agriculture is something that we have in common over there, it's not the only thing we have So there are homes that all are affected by the 76, and I'd rather collect some of those neighborhoods than to go all the way up there.
So it's almost like modification of the quadrant, a neighborhood thing that you've done before. But continue. You're going to go and do other things, right? Community of interest.
I'll add some communities of interest to the map that are nearby there. Here's that one is still intact. Whole ag area still intact. I think all of, so right now, all of the communities of interest that we have in that area are whole and intact in there. It's also sort of a balance about respecting the other neighborhoods and other communities of interest throughout the city.
Okay.
So then you can pursue Jamie. One insight was she just said.
Maybe not, you talked about grabbing some streets from the bottom of like by Peacock, but I feel like that's more Tri-City Maricosta region, and then maybe adding up there, right there, if you want to grab more people from.
So this is, I guess, like option B of getting population from North Valley. When it was, I guess, down here in this area, that was disliked. So I think that if we're not going to add this area, then the options would be to explore anything from San Luis Rey, Rancho del Oro neighborhood, and Tri-City. And thank you for that comment.
Can we take a look at taking what you put up out and then maybe going more toward Rancho del Oro?
Sure.
What that would look like west of College,
Instead of the northern piece.
So just in terms of timing, so you can plan your weekend, we're gonna keep working on this particular plan, and then we'll call it quits for today. Is that okay with everybody? And then we'll pick up where we left off today, and everybody can come back with really good ideas on Tuesday. Yay. And bring a sandwich, as I always say.
Are any of these maps going to be available online to compare one with the other?
We're going to send them to the city's GIS people and see how, sorry, Zach. We'll send them to the city's GIS people and see how quickly we can get them up. I think we can, at the very least, get like a PDF of the maps up. I mean, and they're not, they're not perfect anyway, so we don't have to do fancy. We'll just send what we had right now and just put on it concept, not perfectly populated, have a lot of disclaimers and footnotes.
Once you get the right population, can we pull that out a bit just to see what we got?
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll send it on Monday. It should be up by Monday evening. Here we go. It's a fast process.
All right, so if we add this area, which is Oceanside Boulevard to the south, moving up St. Cloud Way, and let's see. This is Old Grove Road up here, and then going on Mission up to the 76. Then this would be negative 2.24% deviation for this district.
Oh, if everyone could just take it down just 2 notches, we're just going to finish.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good.
Could you, it was hard to hear in my area. Could you?
I believe it. All right, so this is Oceanside Boulevard, St. Cloud Way, and then moving up here, Mission, 76.
That one I like.
As a comment, that separates all of Rancho del Oro, which is in of itself a neighborhood.
Right. So here's...
There's one thing for the east side, but it splits up a very center area.
Yeah.
El Corazon, that's like El Corazon area.
Yeah.
Right. So... It seems like maybe in the room in general, there's more approval for this one, and then we can move on and make other...
I wouldn't say that.
Take a vote.
No.
Let's take a vote then, that's a great idea.
Well, Jamie,
Taking a vote.
the one that I proposed, supposedly that area that I had, and all of those areas that I had are within 2%.
Except now, then the rest of them attached to the beach, and that was my concern.
So if we're just looking
If
at.
you're just looking at that, where are your other three?
If we're just looking at this district, the red one we've been working on, then the only difference is instead of these areas in Rancho Del Oro, here in Tri-City is where it picked up that population that was missing. And the other things that so besides this that we've tried, the other things are all along the north here or just right here, this sort of central area of North Valley.
Yeah, and real quick on what Jamie was saying, and since we're going to try and just finish this map to be able to at least have as an option, I'd say, we can take a quick vote of hands, but before doing that, just let you know, all of these are conceptual. These are all going to be proposed eventually to the City Council, so it would be best for us to have as many options for them to review as possible.
I think we're going to try and come down to one map for the City Council to review and to alter.
For you guys to expertly go through. So real quick, is everyone hands in favor of proceeding at least with this current map as it's structured? Just show of hands. If you
I only see one district.
with her to continue to move forward with this. To the next district. So, okay, show of hands who do not want to go on. So I saw 7. Okay, 1. Okay, so I think we'll just proceed at least with this one for right now. So thanks, Jamie. And how about for just since we're on a timeline, if we could just let Jamie just run with it and then kind of come up with a conclusion, and we'll see what this map looks like. Thanks.
First of all, I don't feel connected with Morrow Hills. I don't feel connected here. I'm in this area. I feel connected in this area or here. So stretch that out. But I don't feel connected with Morrow Hills. We have a whole different set of needs and desires and...
Right, no. And I understand that, but like, the majority of that impact is what I'm thinking. And here's my goal.
I understand. I heard you, but I'm not interested.
Okay.
So, thank you.
We are also, I think, perfect sector. Okay, yeah, so we're just, it seems like we'd like to keep it more community and better protecting like
Okay, so very quickly, we could use, hello, attention. Hello, gentlemen. We need to know, do we go toward Fire Mountain or do we go up?
Fire Mountain. Fire Mountain. Go up to Fire Mountain.
Versus Oceana?
No. Fire Mountain.
Up. How many do you need?
Try it.
Fire Mountain. Let's continue.
On this one, since there's disagreement, let's take a vote. Just show of hands. So who would like this to continue going towards Fire Mountain? Show of hands. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 7. Who would like it to head north, including Oceana? 1, 2, 4. So 7 said go to Fire Mountain, 4 said to go to Oceana. So we'll go towards Fire Mountain.
I say we try to keep as many communities of interest together that we have so far. And now I'm throwing it to Jamie to figure this out.
I think that...
We have a question, I know I just got here. How are you guys doing this, or are you guys going by population?
Yes.
All right, that's 4%.
Yeah, that's the same map. Yeah, that's the one that,
All right, so for this next district, hello everybody. For the next district, I grabbed Oceana, and then I guess the next question is to go up and grab probably all the way north to the city as far as we can go, maybe airport to not split low to Alma.
Go west, go west, go west.
What is the general?
Yeah, let's do something else.
Yeah, so you have to go north.
Then go north.
Okay.
This has got my vote.
All right, so if we have this census block group in with the district, then it's 9.5% over deviation. I'm just going to show you what it looks like to take the whole thing off. Which is 4.41% deviation. So this, here, I'm going to switch.
Save it or?
I'm going to switch this one from red so it's a little easier to see. So this red area would be 4.41% deviation. I'm going to show some of the communities of interest in that area. That one that was about seniors wanting to stay together is intact. Of course, Oceana is intact. And I think that the only one that is split is this one saying everything north of 76 is one community of interest. Is the only community of interest split in this. One thing to note is that the rest of this area that doesn't have any fill-in in it is negative 6.17% deviation, so that would need to take a little bit of population from somewhere else, and it could be the green. Yes, it could be the green. It could be the well, the red is already. Oh yeah, it could be the red.
I got a question. Can the city add another council person for that district?
How do they come up with four? Just because there's four council people?
As of right now.
Right.
It has to be done within 90 days.
Right. But 2011, they could make 5 seats.
So, okay, so this.
Attention.
All right, I'm just gonna. Whoops. Okay. Yeah. All right, so now I'm going to grab a little bit of population for this yellow district from this red one really quick. And where does it make the most sense to do it? South of Douglas here or to right here? Okay.
Right where it says up and around. And that little triangle.
Alright, so they go over there. I'm gonna try to make sure that this. Okay, so that's.
What a fun exercise.
Alright, so that's.
What's that line on the top of the green?
This?
Right below the border of that.
That's the neighborhood boundaries from the city, and it's not like projecting exactly.
No, right below Loma Alta. Is that Oceanside Boulevard, or?
Yeah.
What if you grab the north of Oceanside Boulevard?
This is Oceanside
Or is that the creek?
Boulevard.
Oh, okay.
This is the neighborhood boundary from the city.
Okay.
No, it's just the neighborhood boundary from the city. See, so.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna save this version.
Like I said, I just got here, that's my neighborhood, we didn't get no notice or anything. But my neighborhood, I want to know, I know you guys are going by the census, but the census, not the kids vote, it's only the registered voters. No, it's not.
Yes.
The census, everyone, but are the kids going to vote in that census? No, it's just the adults.
So
who's going to vote for these representatives? It's not everyone. So I don't know how you guys are going to do this. You guys should go by the registered voters.
Yeah. So to give a.
So why are we doing this?
So the state law. So it's basically the California Voting Rights Act and the Federal Voting Rights Act. So the reason for that is basically it can only be the only metric we can use is the census data. So we're not trying to find an even amount of voters in each district. It has to be an even number of population according to the 2010 census. So that's the main reason why. But it's legally that's what we're obliged to comply with. But I understand your question. It does make sense. But if
my neighborhood since the 2010, we got a lot of new homes in that area where you guys put wire, like we're the stepchild.
Oh, no worries. And what's going to happen though is
more homes over there now.
Exactly. So we only could use the census data. So we're doing this right now. It's 2017. We're going to have to do this again in 2020, and that'll include all of the information, all the new census data. But we're forced to work with the 2010 census. That's why. But yeah, sorry. But no, it's a really good question though. Really good question.
Also, if I could add to that, we drew not just that map, we drew a whole bunch of maps today. So we're just starting to figure out what might make sense given the constraints that we have. Okay, which also include, of course, the census data. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attendance today. Thank you. Yes? Well, again, these are not perfect. These are concept maps, okay? So we're going to put them up on the city's website as PDFs. And on Tuesday, we will continue to work on these maps and hopefully narrow it down to fewer maps, see what makes sense, and hopefully by the time we get to City Council, we have one map that everybody can agree on. You know, it's not going to be perfect, okay? Not everybody's going to get every wish. So I'm going to give this to Zach right now to just...
All right. Yeah, thank you again. Real quick, thank you guys so much. A couple of important things. So this obviously was step number 1 in drawing these maps. We have another meeting Tuesday at Lake Elementary School at 6 p.m. We're going to do this, but even at a little bit extending the amount of time we're doing so. Then another meeting the following Tuesday at the library community rooms. By far the most important thing, turn in your community of interest form. That is going to be the most essential thing that you can do. And if you need copies of that, I have extra copies here. You can get them on the website and just turn them back into myself. And May 30th is the deadline for that. So that's what I would say is best. Otherwise, thank you for spending your Saturday with us. I hope you guys have a good one.
Good work.
Thanks.
Thanks, Zach. Good job.